Hello everyone and welcome back to the coverage of the Magnus Invitational. We are continuing with the match Nepomniachtchi versus Alireza Firouzja, but as tomorrow we had 4 pairs of people playing chess, I will not be able to cover all of the games. So here I'm just going to cover the Armageddon game. It was a really tough match between the two of them, just back and forth, a lot of decisive games. But now we reach Armageddon where Jan has the white pieces. He has 5 minutes against Alireza's 4 and he needs to win the match. And it is quite a game, but before we check it out, I do have 2 announcements. One is, as it's Friday, we're going to have 2 tournaments again today. The Meadow Arena, the warm-up for the main event, Agadmator's Friday Arena. So the links to both of the tournaments will be in the description below, so do join. And I will also put a link to our team on Leeches, so you can join our team as well for future tournaments. But also there's an option on Leeches now where I can message all of the members at once. So I just create a tournament and then I send you the link to the tournament, so you don't have to worry about where's the link, where's the tournament, and so on. So if you want to join our team as well. Another thing, it's the 1st of the month, so every 1st of the month, or maybe every 3rd 1st of the month, I will suggest that you check that YouTube did not unsubscribe you from the channel against your will, as YouTube sometimes will do that, thinking maybe you're a bot, or if you don't comment, or if you don't engage with the community, they might think you're a bot and then they will delete your subscription. So make sure that didn't happen to you. So that's one. That's basically 2 announcements. And the 3rd announcement, I will now announce my first guest for the agadmator podcast that is starting this month. Some of you did have it right. The first guest for the agadmator podcast is none other than, I'm sure you know who it is Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. So there we have it. Hopefully it's going to be a good podcast. I've never done a podcast, but I'm very excited about it, and I hope I will do a good job. So I'm also offering you this opportunity. There is also an email in the description below. It says agadmatorpodcast@gmail.com. So you're more than welcome to send some of your own questions that you would like to ask Maxime. So, if you ever thought about, what would you ask Maxime if you, saw him walking down the street, then just send that question to agadmatorpodcast@gmail.com. And I will also include that question among the other questions during the podcast. So that being said, let's check out the game. This is Armageddon. Nepo with the white pieces, he needs a win and he goes for e4. Alireza sticks with his Caro-Kann defense. We have c6, d4, d5, and e5. Nepo goes for the advanced variation of the Caro-Kann and bishop to f5, not worrying about any g4 ideas, which doesn't seem to be all that popular in the top level. So knight to f3 and e6 now, closing the cage here. Now the bishop is free. Bishop to e2 and knight to e7. We have c3 by Nepo, strengthening the center, and h6 now. If the bishop is under attack, you can just tuck your bishop away to h7. We have castles, and now knight to d7. And Alireza has a very solid setup here. He managed to develop his light square bishop. The center is nicely closed. The knights are very solid here, and he will just continue developing, maybe some b6, rook to c8, maybe c5 in the future, and so on. So knight bd2 by Nepo, and a5 now, grabbing more space in the center, preparing a4. We have rook to e1, developing and also preparing the f1 square for the knight, so you can shift it over to g3 to go after the bishop on f5. We have a4, and now knight to f1, remaneuvering the knight. We have bishop to g6, not waiting for the bishop to be under attack, and still knight to g3. And there is one game in the database where knight to c8 was played, but here we have c5 by Firouzja, and it is a new move in the position. So already as of move 11, we have a completely new game. We have bishop to b5 now by Nepo, and now comes a3, as there is now a double attack on the pawn here. Alireza just pushes a3. He doesn't mind giving up a pawn to mess up Nepo's pawn structure. Nepo, of course, not interested. He goes b3. And now the rook is stuck guarding the a3 pawn here. We have knight to c6, and here queen to e2, just continuing development. C captures on d4, and now knight captures on d4. We have queen to b6, developing the queen, putting pressure on the d4 knight, and the bishop to e3 now, threatening a lot of nasty discoveries. So bishop to c5, not allowing this, and here Nepo goes for bishop captures on c6. B captures, and now getting rid of this nasty bishop here with b4. We have bishop captures on d4, bishop captures on d4, and now queen to b5, offering a queen trade, and Nepo declines. Queen to g4. We have h5 attacking the queen, and now queen to h4, making it a bit problematic for Firouzja. For example, if you want to go for something like knight b6 to c4, then bishop to c5 will be a real problem. So you will have to do something weird like king to d7, start running, or knight to c8 or something like that. So instead, immediately c5 by Firouzja, going after that bishop, b captures, and we have knight captures now, and knight to e2, preparing knight to f4 to go after the bishop here. But Firouzja doesn't allow it. We have knight to d3, attacking the rook, and also covering the f4 square. Rook to f1, defending the f2 pawn once again, and now queen to c4, not allowing the bishop to move, as the queen will be under attack. And also, if the knight moves, not a very pleasant position for white. So here, a knight to g3 first. You cannot go to f4, like we've said. And now the question is, what do you do here with Firouzja's pieces? Do you capture the pawn, as it seems like it's a free pawn, but it's quite unclear. For example, if captures, you cannot recapture because you lose the queen, but you can go f4, push back the knight, and after knight c6, you can capture on g7. So it's a position to consider. However, it's not a terrible position. Here, Firouzja went for rook to b8 instead. He wants to do a nice rook lift with rook to b2, maybe add another attacker to the f2 pawn. But now Nepo finds f4. Now he defends the e5 pawn, and you no longer have this knight captures on e5 idea. So knight to c5 by Firouzja, and well, knight c5. Of course, Nepo wants to play f5, and it's hard to find a way how to counter f5. So here, Nepo decides knight to c5. He's gonna capture here and shift the knight over to e6. So okay, Nepo continues with f5, and now e captures on f5. We have knight captures on f5, and now bishop captures, rook captures, and Firouzja now shifts the knight over to e6. Putting pressure on the bishop here, and now rook 8 to f1 by Nepo, putting pressure on the f7 pawn. And now the problem is you can't castle here to defend it like this, because then just rook captures and it's game over. There's no escaping this. What you could try is g5, but g5 is a crazy move, and it's impossible to calculate everything that happens after g5. For example, rook captures on g5, knight captures, and queen captures, and now rook to f8, adding another defender, but now e6, and of course the engine prefers white incredibly here, and you would too, but it's hard to decide on such a move when the time on the clock is very low. So instead, Firouzja goes for rook to b7, adds another defender to the f7 pawn this way, but here Nepo just captures the pawn. Rook captures on h5. And okay, it's not a problem. Later on, you'll be able to capture on d4 twice, maybe. And now rook captures on h5. We have queen captures on h5, and now knight captures on d4. So it seems like Firouzja solved all of his problems. However, there is one way Nepo can keep the action going. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the best move for Nepo here while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the correct maneuvers with the queen to align with the knight on d4. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen h8 check. Now the problem is, if you go to d7, you're getting mated. Rook captures on f7 check, king c6, and now queen here check just wins the game. There's nothing you can do. Check, 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 king here, and checkmate. So you have to go to e7, which is what Firouzja played, but now queen back to h4 check, and now you defend the d4 square. So king to e8, but now c captures on d4, and this saves the d4 pawn and the chances for Nepo to actually win this game, as he's now up a pawn. But okay, it's only one pawn. Firouzja goes for it. Rook to b4, attacks the d4 pawn, but now queen h8 check. Now Nepo wants to trade his central pawns for this pawn. So king to e7, and queen captures on g7, which will also defend the e5 pawn. Queen captures on d4 with check, king to h1, and now comes queen to f2. We reach the position from the thumbnail. Firouzja offers a queen for a nice checkmate on b1. So Nepo has to do something about it. He goes queen to g5 check, and here, amazingly critical position, Firouzja goes king to e6. King to d7 is just a normal move that doesn't allow white any chances. But king to e6, however, completely blunders the game for Firouzja. So once again, feel free to pause the video and try to find the winning idea for Nepo while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting why the king was better on d7 than on e6. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, queen to c1. Now the point is, you reintroduce the threat of rook captures on f2 since there will be no mate here, so black has to react by moving the queen. And there is no good way to move the queen as the white queen is planning queen to c6 check. So for example, if you go queen to b6, just rook f6 check wins the queen. So that's not going to work out. So here Firouzja tried queen to e2, but this still doesn't work as Nepo now just goes for queen to c6 with check, and you don't have a move here. You have two options. One is to go to e7, but then it's queen to c7 check, and then after you go back, it's just, well, you either go here and it's mate, or you go to e8 and then just queen captures on f7, and you're going to get mated very soon. So the other option is to capture the pawn, which is what Firouzja did, but now Nepo just played queen to e8 check, and it was in this position that Alireza Firouzja resigned the game, as after the king moves, wherever you just pick up the queen and it's game over. So yeah, really exciting match. Every game was really exciting, but especially the Armageddon, which was just incredibly crazy. Firouzja had a lot of chances. He had a very solid position, a very much playable position, but in the end, Nepo prevailed, as Nepo is a very tricky player. So yeah. Like I said, do check out the tournaments. The links to the tournaments will be in the description below. Also, the link to join our Elite Chess team will be in the description below. And also the mail, agadmatorpodcast@gmail.com, where you can send your questions that you would wish to ask Maxime Vachier-Lagrave for me to include in the podcast that I will be releasing this month. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Andrea Cierci, Polak Shlomo, Ivan Lamont, Saud Abdullah, and Shubo Banerjee for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Magnus Invitational until it finishes. And yes, of course, I forgot. Here are the standings of the tournament after the preliminary rounds. Whoa, sorry about that. Some special effects are needed here. Here's a nice cross table from Chess24 website. There you have it. So the last four places have been decided. It's Jan Nepomniachtchi, Alireza Firouzja, Anish Giri, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. And of course, the other four are still battling it out in the knockout stage of the tournament for the top four spots. Nakamura, Carlsen, Ding, and Caruana. So yeah, once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.